In this insightful episode, I sit down with the gorgeous Sarah Jeffery, a distinguished psychic medium and former Army officer who has devoted her life to bridging the gap between the living and the spirit world. Sarah shares her unique journey from military service to becoming a leading educator and practitioner in the field of evidential mediumship. As the founder at One Events and president of Canberra Spiritualist Association, Sarah offers a wealth of knowledge and experience that is sure to captivate and inspire. Tune in as we explore the origins and future of evidential mediumship, the mission behind At One Events, and the vibrant community of the Canberra Spiritualist Association. Hi, Sarah. I'm so excited to explore evidential mediumship with you.
Thank you, Suzy. It's a thrill to be with you today.
Beautiful. So let's dive deep into these questions. I'm really super curious. Can't wait to talk to you about mediumship. Obviously, it's one of my favourite subjects. So can you share with us what led you from being an Army officer to a psychic medium and teacher?
It's a twisty road, Suzy.
Yeah.
I would love to say that I was like you and I knew I had some connection with the spirit world early on, but I didn't. I have no memory as a child of having connections with the spirit world, but what I did have was a thirst for knowledge and some real worries. So my worries as a young, more of a teenager, as I was raised in a Christian home. It wasn't forced down my throat, but I had a grandmother who was very much the only way to heaven was through Jesus. Now, I was brought up in a military family and we moved around the world. And so I ended up having some friends from all over the world, and their prophets were not Jesus. And at the age of 12, I was absolutely beside myself with worry that my best mate, who was from Pakistan, was not going to go to heaven just because she hadn't been born in the right place at the right time. So I really carried that strongly, and I just couldn't quite make heads or tails of, but if this is a loving God, then why are my friends not going to go to heaven?
Why are they missing out?
Why are they missing out? So it really worried me. And then, later on, I'm confirmed into the Anglican Church, and I say to the priest, if I don't really believe in God, will I go to hell? Now, he didn't actually say, no, you won't, but he didn't really make me feel confident that I would be saved either.
Yeah.
So jump forward a number of years later, I'm in Perth, and I'm told about a medium in Perth, and her name's Christine Morgan. And it's back in the day, Suzy, you'll remember, where we didn't have Google. She couldn't look me up. She couldn't do any research on me. I booked this appointment. All she knew was my name was Sarah. And I went along to her home. It was a very normal suburban home. She was just a nicely dressed, normal looking lady, and into her home I went, and I took 17 pages of notes. And so I had this reading, and she told me all about me, all about my family. And then I hadn't really experienced any major losses at that time in my life. But she brought through some people. I thought, oh, well, I know who that is. But then she brought through people that I had no clue of, brought me names of people, made no sense to me. I'm like, Anne and Jim. No, I'm not naming, if I have children, I'm not naming them Anne and Jim. I don't know what she's talking about. Go home, talk to the folks. My mother's eyes are like saucers.
Yeah.
Oh, Anne and Jim are your great aunt and uncle, etc.
Wow, yeah.
So I just felt like this great weight had been lifted off my shoulders, because, oh my goodness, there was the answer. The spirit world existed. This woman couldn't have known it. She couldn't have researched it, and she couldn't read it off me. she couldn't have pulled it through my mind. And so I was so relieved and I was excited. And I honestly understand why people go knocking on doors.
Yes, yeah.
Because if I could have, Suzy, I would have. I would have said to everybody, I've got the answer, the spirit world's real, it's absolutely true. But also, we're going back nearly 30 years and it still wasn't as acceptable as it is now. And so I learned very quickly that even though I'd had this amazing experience, I couldn't just gift it to other people, that they had to have their own. So what happens next
Clever. Yeah.
is I become a stalker, Suzy, because
Yeah.
then I basically signed up for workshops off this medium and waited until she invited me to be a part of her circle. So I was really, really lucky in that I got to join a home circle, the traditional way of learning about mediumship. But I was only there for a couple of years and I got a terrible nickname. I was known as Crybaby because I was also a new young mum. I'd just had to give away my military career for children. Well, I didn't have to, but that's kind of what we did. And I would turn up on a Friday morning. I would have put the kids into childcare for my 2 hours on a Friday morning just so I could go to circle. And before I'd even be knocking on the door, I'd be in tears because I'd be so excited to be at circle. And I was really the baby of the group, and there was these experienced women and mediums. But 2 years in and we're posted. We moved from Perth to Canberra and I'm bereft. So I've left the group, I've left the circle. What do I do? So I would bring my teacher over to Canberra and we'd run some workshops and things. And then after that, the students would say, well, that was great, but now what do we do? And Christine would say to me, well, Sarah, you know a little bit more than the rest, so you can start facilitating circles. I would never tell a student to do that now. Yes, I hadn't found someone else to go to, but boy, did I skin my knees because I wasn't really ready to be the teacher. Yes, maybe I had a little bit more experience than the others, but sometimes it was truly the blind leading the blind. I just look back and think, oh my goodness, Sarah, some of the things that you believed back then or you taught. And I've been so lucky because I've had circle members with me for decades, and I make one promise. Well, I make a couple, but one of my promises is I will share everything I know as I understand it. And if my understanding changes, I promise I will tell you, and I'll tell you why. So they've been very good and they've stuck with me. But again, I see a lot of people come into the field of mediumship, they get very excited, and then, 6 months down the track or after a weekend course, they're hanging up their shingle. And I just think, Suzy, oh my goodness, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. Also because of the reason, and you will understand this, when you teach, you give from your own power.
Yes, yeah.
Every time someone is teaching before they're truly ready, they're actually starting to take away a little bit from their own ability. So you've got to really desire to be the teacher. That's got to be your path, or otherwise it can actually have a little bit of a negative influence on your own development. So I get into circles, I do workshops, etc. But eventually there comes a time where you have to stand on your own 2 feet. So I had a little bit of support from a distance, did my workshops, etc. And then some funny things happen with the universe. And so much like everybody else, we don't escape life. I went through divorce, I'd gone from being, a traditional wife with children to suddenly being divorced, wondering what on earth I was going to do for work.
Yep.
Having children. So I went back into muggle world and having jobs, and all the while continuing with my circles. which I'm really proud of, actually, when I look back
Yeah.
and think, you know
Yeah.
what, I was going through some pretty tough times, but that connection to spirit was still so ingrained. It was still such a part of who I am. Anyhow, where do I go with this? I went to a couple of retreats. I stayed in contact with my teacher. And then I had a very strange dream, Suzy. I had this really strong dream that I needed to go and learn from a chap called Simon James, a wonderful UK medium who's based in Canada. And I'd woken up from this dream one morning going, oh my God, I just have to check that out. And I went, and I had met him actually through Christine, but I went online and there was a course coming up in Canada. And I got in contact and I said, look, I really want to come, and, I'd bring some circle members and Anyhow, it all came to pass. And I took a group over to Canada to this retreat. And who happened to be on it, Suzy, but Julian Glover, who became my husband. So we
Oh,
were.
I love that. That's so amazing. And I've met Julian, and you two have a wonderful synergy together. And I love that you're both very dedicated to what you're doing. And yeah, wow. Yeah, guided by spirit. Yeah.
Guided by spirit. So we had literally a week together, and I can say nothing happened, Suzy, while we were there, other than we went out for dinner at the end of the retreat. And then I hopped on a flight back to Australia going, oh. Neither of us were looking. Anyhow, so then we were Skyping for months, and he came out to Australia, and the story went from there. And the poor man had to say to his mother and family, I'm moving to Australia. I'm marrying this Australian girl. I've had one dinner and spent a week with her in Australia, and we've got a visa, and he's coming over to get married. So I met his family for the first time when they came out for our wedding. So that's now 10 years ago. It's worked out pretty well. So Julian, great healer, so supportive of the work with spirit. So our connection is just so strong with that. I'm going to jump forward a few years because we continue with our circles. But then I had this wonderful friend, again, the universe comes knocking, a lovely lady called Silvana La Pena, her medical intuitive coach, just fabulous one. And in about 2014 or 2015, she's saying to me, Sarah, you should host Mavis Patilla to Australia. And I laughed and I laughed and I laughed. I said,
I actually remember that. Yeah.
I said, Mavis doesn't know me. As if the doyen of mediumship is going to come out to Australia to be hosted by this girl that she has never met. And she was on to me for probably about 18 months. Anyhow, time passes, and Silvana ends up supporting a mediumship week that had Mavis held by another organizer. Oh, terrible. The name will come to me. Anyway, so Silvana helps on a retreat with Mavis in Sydney. Back on the phone to me, Sarah, you should
Invite her up. Yeah.
invite her. Anyhow, I looked at Julie and I said, what do you reckon? Should we do this? Unbeknownst to us, we send this little letter email to Mavis, say, you don't know us. This is who we are. We'd love to have you out. We didn't know that Mavis was on her way to the Arthur Findlay College, and she was on the same week as Christine Morgan, Simon James, Brian Robertson, all three tutors who knew Julian and I personally. I still to this day don't know if there were conversations in the tutor room about who are these upstarts, Sarah Jeffery and Julian Glover, but Mavis said yes. And the rest is history. One Events was born, and yeah, we're just about to head on our 18th retreat at the monastery in a week's time. But we got to start our journey with Mavis Patilla, the doyen, and that obviously opened doors to other tutors being prepared to give us a go, and that's how we went. So it's kind of mind-boggling because
It is mind-boggling, but yeah, look, I just love all those synchronicities, and obviously, all of that was meant to happen, and that was so beautifully expressed. I just loved that how it all came together. So I think the listeners are going to be really curious about what is evidential mediumship and why is it so important?
Yeah. Well, I know you know this answer, and I'm actually you're probably not even going to remember this, Suzy, but I remember you and a piece of evidential mediumship you gave 8 years ago or whenever it was. Be funny, I bet you don't even remember, but it stuck with me. So you gave a piece of evidential mediumship that was absolutely stellar. You brought through somebody and you started talking about seeing 007, James Bond, and that was this person a spy? And your recipient was like, oh, yeah, they were. And that stuck with me. So well done.
You're quite right. I don't remember that, but I
But
do remember that weekend.
it
Yeah.
was brilliant. It was brilliant. So evidential mediumship is when we bring through that cannot be disputed, that piece where it's not, I know it's a bit cheeky when I say it's not just love and light. Yes, a lot of what the spirit world will bring us is love, and it is light, and it is, uplifting and reassuring and connection. But we want to know that the person we're bringing through, that our recipient goes away going, how did they know that?
Yeah.
That was absolutely my dad. That was absolutely my wife. That was absolutely my daughter. It's just undisputable, because
Yes.
we're having an experience as a medium where, how wonderful for us, we get to see things, feel things, sense things, smell things, taste things, whatever it is. But our poor recipient doesn't get that experience. Even when we're feeling the love from the spirit world, our recipient doesn't get to have the same experience we're having. They have to hear it through the messenger. So we need to bring such information that they go, well, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
This memory is a memory I have with my dad. Oh, absolutely. This is, what she said to me, what my wife said to me that time at this 50th birthday party, whatever it is, but recognizing that it's not just the platitudes, that it's not just, oh, I've got a male figure who stood up straight and called a spade a spade. Well, I reckon all of us could go, yeah, I know a guy like that, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So it's being able to go, no, that's my person. That is my
Exactly.
person. Because the detail is enough that it has to be my person.
Yes.
And the reason it's so important is we're proving that life goes on. Now, the message is wonderful. It's brilliant to go, oh, yes, heard from dad. I always pick dad because my dad's in the spirit world. So I go, that's the one that stands out to me. But it could be anyone. It could be grandpa. It could be sister. It could be school friend. It doesn't matter. When we think about both worlds, you've got someone in the spirit world who just wants to say, sweetheart, I'm here. I'm alive. I see you. I haven't left you. We will meet again. Then you've got the recipient going, I need it to be real.
Yes.
I need it to be true. I need you to lift my grief. I need to be so sure that that part of me where my heart is so broken can just start being stitched back together, because I know, not I believe, not I have faith, not that I hope, but I know that they're there. And for me, the only way we can give that is through evidential mediumship. And it's still not the same. We can't bring them. We can't put them on the telephone. We can't put them on Zoom, but it has to be through our words and it has to be through our evidence, and it's really hard because you know what it's like if you haven't been trained, if you haven't been taught, even as a recipient, you go, oh, well, what do I accept as enough? And sometimes
Yeah.
can be really hard, how many recipients, I'm sure you've had them too, where they might have a code word. It's like, well, I may never get the code word. No.
That's it. But I do have this information that
But I do
seems
have,
very valid.
I have
Yeah.
25 other pieces that you've just said yes to. So,
I know.
hopefully that's enough. But the big message is that we all live after death. That's the message. And sometimes people say to me, and students learning will go, oh yeah, but right, my sister came through, but what was the message? I'm like,
That
your
is the
sister came
message.
through. That's the message.
That
She's
is it.
alive. She's alive, right?
Yeah.
So it's so important. And I just feel, we're in a, I think we all sort of go, what do we call ourselves? Industry, profession, group, whatever we want to call ourselves. And we've got every level of ability. And that means we've got some whose ability is poor. And we have to be honest about that. We have to be able to say, I know beautiful people who have big hearts and the best intention, but they don't have a natural ability. They're only going to be taken to a certain level. And we want everyone to do the best they can, but they're not always going to be the right people to bring through the evidence. Yes, we've also got to acknowledge there are fraudulent people. Absolutely. So we're fighting this battle, of we want to get out this knowledge, this truth to as many people as we can. Yeah, we've got those who are well-intentioned without ability. We've got those who are ill-intentioned, who have all the confidence, and then you have those who are working towards, getting to an ethical level, getting to
Yes. Yeah.
a good standard. And, Suzy, they're always the ones that doubt themselves the most.
I know. Like even as a medium, and I've been doing this for a long time, I think it's so important to, continually up level, practice, find the right teachers that can challenge you. And I did one of your amazing events and workshops with Paul Jacobs, and I found it a little bit overwhelming. But in saying that, like I walked away from that weekend because feeling a lot more confident as a medium. And the reason for that is because I remember Paul saying to me, you know who you're talking to, walk over to them now. And I went, oh, and I did. And to that day, I don't do the throwing it out, I try and walk to the person I'm talking to. And it takes courage and it takes bravery.
Yeah.
But self-mastership is an ongoing learning and ongoing development journey, Yeah. So I absolutely love the work you do. And you've sort of answered this question. You must be psychic or something. But do you believe you are born a medium or you can become one?
It really upsets people, this question, doesn't it?
It does. It's a big question.
It's a big question. So I do believe you've got to have whatever that little bit of DNA is to take it to a level where you can hold a communication. However, I believe everybody has the capacity to have a mediumistic experience. So when we think about people who are in grief, for example, when the world is just white noise, or, when they're in that sort of state and a loved one comes close and they see them out of the corner of their eye, or they smell them, or they're just aware for that moment. And sadly, most just go, oh, it's wishful thinking, or it's, my grief. But in those moments, I truly believe people can have a mediumistic experience.
Oh, I love that. What a
But I
great way
believe
to explain it.
yeah, but I
Yeah.
believe there's a difference in being able to go, can you hold the power? Can you hold a connection? Can you have the conversation? So, you know, I know it upsets people, but again, when people say, "Oh, well, I was told, that I wasn't a medium," but then, 10 years later, well, you shouldn't be told that you're not a medium anyway.
Yeah.
Because you've got to find that out yourself.
Yeah.
And maybe it took that time to develop, having the life experiences, having the right teachers, etc. So I mean, people think I'm a bit of a fuddy-duddy, Susie, because I'm so strict about, evidential mediumship, of just trying to hold the line and hold a standard of it's the one thing that we've got, and this that we can prove as much as we can. We've got so many other beautiful modalities which are fascinating and interesting, and I know they're not my knowledge base, so like I know you do your beautiful oracle cards and you probably know all the tarot. Well, I couldn't tell you anything about the tarot because I just pick a card and just read it intuitively, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So a smack hand for that, right? So there's all these other wonderful modalities that have great meaning and value. But when people say to me, "Oh, well, it's all the same," I go, actually,
Actually, no, it's
not.
not. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not, because if I've got a mother sitting in front of me and they're grieving their 17-year-old son who's passed to the spirit
Yeah.
world, I better be bringing stuff about him.
Yes. Yeah. There's a responsibility. And I love that you have that integrity. And to me, that is dedication.
And
And,
you're right.
yeah.
You've got to be courageous, Susie. You're absolutely
Yeah.
right, because we do get things wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. I mean, everyone does. Yeah. It's not an exact science. We're all doing the best we can at the time. And it's a mediumship's amazing. But yeah, that's exactly right. So having the courage to make the mistake is the best way to learn and grow and evolve.
Absolutely.
And yeah, absolutely.
Or as Paul
Yeah.
would say, to want the nose, to actually have to embrace the nose, because they are what teach us, and then we go, oh, okay, well, what did I do wrong? Oh, it wasn't what I received that was wrong. It was how I interpreted it. Okay.
Yeah.
What am I
Yeah.
going to do next time? How am I?
Yeah. And how you express that as well.
That's what I.
Yeah. Yeah. So can you tell us about the upcoming developments in the field of evidential mediumship education? Because I know, it's been happening for eons and eons. But yeah, what are your thoughts in around that?
It's really interesting because it's also a bit of it seems like everything's a hot topic, right? Because there's, I suppose there's a bit of an underswell, I guess, of people going, well, we've been doing it the same way for decades. Surely it should be moving forward and changing and growing. And I go, yeah, I agree. And yeah, we should be moving forward. But what does that actually look like? Can we keep the foundation of, okay, in my world, it's all about the evidential mediumship. You have to go, okay, well, can we bring proof there? Yeah. Well, what can I see happening around the world? Science is coming closer to spirit, right?
Yeah.
You're now getting, I've just watched something recently where you're getting all these scientific minds coming together going, wow, energy doesn't die. Look at all the palliative care workers, look at all the near-death experiences, look at all these people are starting to go, why are there across cultures and years, decades, why are people having the same experience when they're watching someone die and they reach out for a loved one, or they call the name of a long lost loved one, or they look
Yeah.
happy, so you've got, take any palliative care worker and they'll say, this is clearly not the end, so science is starting to embrace what we know. I think psychology is
Yes.
starting to
Yeah.
embrace it, and I can't tell you how many psychologists I have as clients, Susie, which I love. I just love it because, you know, they can't say to their clients, because they're all healers, right? They
Yeah.
can't say to the clients, oh, I feel like I'm being inspired by the spirit world, but quite often they are being inspired as they're helping,
Oh, totally. I've got
right?
so many clients that are psychologists, and I've even got like an ANU science professor that comes to me on a regular basis. I'm sure he
Brilliant.
doesn't tell his colleagues,
Right? Well,
right?
because we're not quite there yet, but they are moving in that direction.
Yes.
And then there's wonderful investigations and things being done around the world with like the electronic voice phenomena and
Yeah.
all sorts of fascinating things. So, you know, I think there is potential for stuff that we can't even comprehend. I do feel quite sorry for the spirit world though, because I think, gosh, what they have to do to convince us with, say, further phenomena, you know, we've already had physical mediumship, we've already had seances, we've already had, you know, ectoplasm, and for people who've
Yeah.
not had an experience of it, they're going, yeah, rightio. Well, I'm one of those people who touched ectoplasm. I've sat in a room and watched a three-legged table run up and down a
Yeah.
room.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah. Same
seen,
here.
right? I've
Yeah.
seen fabulous phenomena, you know.
Yes.
But then I go, if you're not in the room, how hard is it to believe, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so it takes we normal folk for our friends and those people who meet us to go, well, I don't think Susie or Sarah are away with the fairies. They seem like they're, you know, relatively sane and they're still talking about these experiences.
Yes.
So maybe there's something to it. But then I think, you know, imagine, Susie, like if we had the power to have the spirit world just form up behind us at this moment, and we got it on tape. Gosh, I'm aging myself, aren't I? We got it filmed.
Yep.
Everyone would just go, well, you guys must have photoshopped that in
Yeah. Yeah,
AI,
that's some kind of AI trick, or how did
right?
you manage that? Or did anybody notice
Right,
there was a light flickering? Or yeah,
right.
I
So I
know.
just think,
What does it
oh,
take?
spirit
What does it
world,
take?
what are you going to have to do to take us further? So I'm still a little bit on the fence, Susie, when I hear people say, oh, well, yeah, but you know, evidential mediumship, it's being done the same way for years, because I go, well, if it ain't broke, do
Yeah,
do we,
exactly.
what do we
And
need
why do we have to
next?
complicate it? And
Why
why
do
do, I'm all for, science and spirit. I think that's not, that's not necessarily a bad thing, or I'm sure it could be, but absolutely, like, if it ain't broke, yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
again, it's kind of that element of, okay, it's a bit like, you know, when you're teaching students and you have an exercise and they might do an exercise and then sometime later you do the same exercise and people go, oh, I've done that before. Like, oh yeah, were you any good at it? How good, how, how good were you at it? Because really, if we were truly dedicated, we might just go, I'm going to do the same exercise for a year until,
Yeah, look at the athlete.
right?
Look at the
Until,
athlete that's got to
right,
swim the
right,
pool how many laps, or,
right.
the runner, like running's running,
Yeah,
swimming, mediumship's mediumship. This is it,
right.
like, yeah.
You know,
And
can you,
practice doesn't make perfect, but it's certainly, it certainly builds skills and confidence and all of that. Yeah.
I came up with a little abbreviation in my head a couple of weeks ago. Um, Incorrect spelling, but you'll get it. Dream, right? So when we think about evidential mediumship, what hits the marker? What hits that mark where we go, nailed it? All right. Everything that could have gone right went right. Direction. So exactly as you've said, yeah, I know who I'm going to.
Yes.
Relationship. Who's the person we're talking to in the spirit world? Is it brother? Is it work colleague? Evidence.
Yes.
So what's some practical evidence? Yeah, they were a plumber. Okay, they were a teacher, they were the spy. Essence, character, what was their personality? You know, bring them alive. What type of person were they?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
then if we get something at the end, which is a message, then we've had our dream reading, right? And so
Yes.
I'm like, how often do we hit all five? Well, we don't. You know, sometimes we won't get relationship at all. We'll go off, no, everything else will be right. But no, I thought it was dad, but it was really grandfather.
Oh, I
I
know.
thought it
Like I
was
had a
sister,
really
but it
great
was
day yesterday. But last week, not quite so much. But,
right.
my intention is loving and pure and
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. And so I just would go, well, you know, those who are saying, well, we should be doing it differently. It should be moving forward. I'm like, well, have you hit dream? Can you do that 5 and
yes,
consistently? If you can do that consistently,
yes, yeah,
so let's say 80% right? Because
yeah,
we've got to accept that our interpretation will be off sometimes, that we just, you know, not the fault of the spirit world. Somewhere we've mucked it up. Okay. So I always say, if I'm 80% right, I feel, you know, I want to be 100. Of course we want to be 100, but if I'm 80 and above, then that's okay.
exactly,
So those who are
exactly.
saying, oh, it's time to be renewed, it's time to be different. Come on, we've got to be moving forward. Right, okay, well, are you hitting that dream point? And are you
Yeah.
consistently at 80% above? Because if you're that person, and then you can come and say, you know, all right, team, I've got the
Okay, where do I go from here?
yeah,
Yeah,
I'll
that's
follow
it.
you. I will absolutely follow. If you've got something else
Yeah,
to bring and you've got that nailed, then wonderful. But
totally.
I'm just not sure of this idea of,
That's
oh,
a great answer because that is so
change
true.
it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because I just wonder
exactly.
sometimes, and I don't mean to get in trouble with anyone here, but I do sometimes wonder, are those who are seeking the changes the ones that aren't quite hitting the target at the moment?
Yeah, yeah. They want to. I'm not going to say a quick fix or a miracle answer. Are they, yeah, true. Are they actually doing it? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And even if you're an experienced medium, I think it's important to, I don't know, continue the practice, find those teachers and guides that are going to take you, to all five, ticks
Absolutely.
in boxes,
Yeah. Absolutely.
consistently. It's an ongoing journey. It's not
And
like you get it
everyone will
right and
bring,
it's all, yeah,
that's right. And
yeah,
everyone will bring their own unique style. So it's this
mm,
element of going, it's not about getting everyone to be inside a certain box. You know,
yeah,
we all have our different lives, our different perception, our different experiences. There will be some people who go, oh God, I wouldn't want to go and see Sarah Jeffery, but oh, I love Suzy Cherub. And vice versa. There'll be those who go, oh no, Sarah's too serious for me, you know, da da da. And others will go, yeah, she's the one, you know. So we just have a different style, we have different things to offer, we have different life experiences. But as long as our mediums have that basic ethical part that goes, you know
yes,
what, I'm not,
exactly.
I'm not always going to get it 100% right. And I'm going to admit that to my recipient and admit it to myself. Okay, I'm going to do the best I can do. Sometimes I'm going to have to say, I'm really sorry, the reading didn't work. Here's your money back, you know, for whatever reason. It didn't happen today. Now, touch wood, you know, it's great that doesn't happen often, but there's times we have to accept, yeah, it wasn't my day. But we all get to bring our unique individual selves to this work.
I love that. Yeah, exactly. Yay. So I'm really curious in regards to At One events. So, how did At One events come to be? And
Yeah.
what's your kind of mission with this organization? And I feel like you've already explained that because, but yeah, I'd love to know that. And what are some of the challenges and rewards you've experienced in founding and running these
Oh,
incredibly
Suzy, good question.
amazing events? Because I know that they're, on a global they're on a global level, right? So yeah, I'm curious. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Look, it is, I was once asked if it's a really good financial business. And I'm going to say honestly, there's got to be a passion to it, right?
Yes.
So really, yes, we had, Silvana those many years ago going, you should host Mavis, you should host Mavis. But the reason behind actually standing at one events up was, you know what? We don't have Arthur Findlay College. We don't
Yes. Yeah.
have that many tutors. And let me be completely honest. I know that there are other people who host retreats. There have been people hosting retreats for years before we got in the game of it. So we're certainly by no means the first, and we won't be the last for sure. But what I found was a real lack in the training of evidential mediumship.
Yes. Yeah. Totally agree.
I'm going to say a little bit of, and again, controversy, a bit of lack of ethics. And like, well, how do we bring to Australian mediums this opportunity? Because not everyone can afford to hop on a flight to the UK or elsewhere for their development.
It's worth mentioning that Arthur Findlay College is a very reputable, credible, it's been there forever. I guess the original Hogwarts in the UK. And of course, when you've been doing it for eons and eons, you're very good at what you do. And they take it very seriously, and people travel from all over the world to go to Findlay College. Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And we just don't have the equivalent. So it was really with that in mind of, okay, well, how do we get the same sort of tutors that would be at the Arthur Findlay College? How do we provide them to the Australian market? So as I said, we're just so lucky, well, guided, but lucky that Mavis came out as our very first tutor. And then that just sort of set another ball rolling in that people were sort of talking about us overseas. People we didn't even know were talking about us. And so they were talking amongst each other. And then I can pretty much say to you, Suzy, we didn't really have to go knocking on the door to approach people, in the sense that there would be some other intermediary person who would go, oh, have you thought about Paul Jacobs or Chris Drew or
Yeah.
oh, okay. And it just sort of snowballed from there. So in the early years, because even though those names were big names to those in the know, they weren't necessarily names known to Australian mediums, because if you'd never been to the Arthur Findlay College, you knew nothing about it. They weren't necessarily people that our students had come across. So in the early days, we'd have mediums out and we'd start with, 3-day workshops in Canberra, and then, okay, well, that went well. All right, well, we'll do a week retreat out at Geelong with them, and we'd sort of build up their name in Australia. So it would, like you talk about the win-win, right? So we'd build them up, and I think back to those first couple of retreats where, now Mavis was a standalone in that people knew Mavis and they came from across Australia.
Extraordinary, yeah.
Yes, I took my students along, but there were people would have filled that course whether I had students or not. But for those that came after, a lot of our circle members, because they trusted us, fortunately, and I went, well, if Sarah and Julian say these people are okay, then they're probably okay. And then again, that builds and builds. So our focus with At One Events is, all right, is the teacher reputable? Is it going to be evidential mediumship? Is it ethical? Then our probably dot points underneath is, we don't go large. So, we can have 4 tutors and 30 students.
Yeah.
Right? Now, that's, okay, that's probably not
That's
good.
such an incredible opportunity.
Yeah, it's not good business sense. I can be honest.
But you and I both know, people think we do, but we're not really doing it.
Right? You know, so and I just sort of say, look, at One Events Family, I consider to be a family, right?
Yeah,
Did I say One Events Family? Well, I consider it a family, right? So it's like, okay, our students do have to have that courage because they know there's nowhere to hide, right?
Yes.
On our retreats, the tutors know who you are, and particularly someone like Paul, they remember how you went last year. And then they'll say, oh, you've gone backwards, or oh, you've really applied what I taught you last year.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and so there is no hide.
No hiding.
There's no hiding.
Exactly. But you also get that really personalized attention. And it's,
Yeah.
it really is about challenging yourself in an environment that is,
It's so
yeah,
intense.
is
It's
so,
so
yeah,
intense. You know, and
intense.
as
Yeah.
you know, I mean, we start early, it's a 12-hour day, you know, and everyone's living and breathing it, you know. I mean, I was looking at our dates the other day going, yeah, no, we do five nights. Yeah, our retreats are actually quite long, you know, so people are just living and breathing, being with spirit, being in the power, absorbing the knowledge. And then even when the students aren't in the conference room, they're with each other, you know, all that sensitivity is up, you know, as you know, we're a group of sensitives, so there's always
Everything's a bit amplified.
everything's amplified, people are emotional, they're bringing their stuff and they're bringing their people too, right? Because, you know, you might be there to work, but half the time you're the recipient.
You're certainly not there on your own.
Right? And so then it's like, oh, now I'm hearing from Nana. Oh, now I'm hearing from my best mate. Now I'm hearing from, you know, so they're dealing with not only their own development, but it's a week of, oh, I'm on the receiving end of my loved ones coming through as well. So we are mixing it up. So we've got our evidential mediumship, you know, we've done our sort of altered state stuff, which we're returning to this year, where we're going to do with Scott Milligan and Natalie Eden Walker, where we're going to do more of across the four of us together with Julian. So I'm going to be, right, it's the mental mediumship, evidential. Julian brings in the healing piece. Natalie and Scott will bring in the altered states and trance mediumship as well.
Yeah, brilliant.
So I'm really excited about.
That's so exciting. That's a really good combo.
Yeah.
Now, you're a very busy lady, president of the Canberra Spiritualist Association. How do you balance these, all relevant too, by the way? I love that they're all in alignment somehow. So how do you balance your various roles and commitments, from teaching to leading associations and
How I gave up the day job, Susie. That's how.
That's how.
I actually look back now with the benefit of hindsight and go, you know, I got to a point of nearly being quite burnt out. It's like you can't do a full-time job, run circles, run events, run a church, and go to bed before midnight any day of the week. And so I'm into my second year now of, okay, Spirit, it's all about you, all right?
Yeah.
You've got me. And again, thank God I've got a loving husband who will do the day job, so that we know that we've got a, you know, a certain income. So yeah, Canberra Spiritualist Association. So I'm in my 6th year as president now. Big year for us because it's the 50th anniversary for the CSA this year. So I love the CSA. I love it because, again, it's a little bit like holding the line with evidential mediumship. It's the hold the line of spiritualism.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're very much the association where you come along, you get exactly what you expect from a spiritualist church, you know, not the recorded church. There are songs, there is philosophy, there's the principles of spiritualism, there's a demonstration of mediumship, there is music, there is community, there's a cup of tea and a piece of cake, and there's healing. And so, you know, I can remember in my early days as president, you know, a couple of people going, "Oh, Sarah, but do you think we can mix it up or add this?" And I'm like, no, we can't,
Yeah,
because
good on you.
we're a spiritualist church.
Like, let's not get distracted with the next shiny thing.
That's right. You
The
know,
next shiny thing, you know?
yeah.
Let's stay true to the path, you know?
But stay true
Yeah.
to the path. And, you know, and I've said to others, you know, just because I'm a president of a spiritualist association doesn't mean that my mind isn't open to all sorts of things that fall outside the realm of spiritualism. I'm not that close-minded. But when I walk in the door of the CSA, we're a spiritualist organisation first. We're not here for entertainment. We're here to bring comfort and upliftment and philosophy. And, you know, I love mediumship. Absolutely, I love mediumship. And I love to see people have their first experience of a reading and a connection. But I love just as much to watch somebody's face when they've listened to a really good philosophy and something has spoken to their soul and they've gone, "Oh, I feel that way."
Yeah.
Oh
Just
my,
witnessing it, you
right.
know, is so uplifting
Yeah.
and so empowering and so healing.
Right.
No, yeah.
Yeah. And so we've brought in spiritual healing with Julian. So we have a very formal sense of healing. So it's not just, does anyone want healing? It's like, no, it's part of our service. Our congregants come up and receive healing. It's actually part of our service. So yeah, it's very special to me, and it's very special to many people who've been part of it. But like all volunteer organisations, we sort of run off the smell of a you know, oily rag.
Yeah.
And, you know, a very small but dedicated committee, but there's only 5 of us, you know, and, you know, I keep going, come on, people, come and volunteer, because this place, it means so much. And it's so humble, Suzy. I mean, we run out of Pierce Community Hall, you know, what
Yeah.
I would give for a beautiful building. But you know what? We turn it into a sacred building every time we
You can
gather.
create sacred space anywhere. And I
Right.
know that you hold space beautifully. And I love that you hold the integrity as well. I'm so excited because I'll actually be there
You are.
Sunday, the 15th of
5th of June.
June.
Yeah.
So,
Really coming.
so grateful to you for inviting me along to do that.
Delighted to have you along. So yeah, we start back in February, a little bit because I've got a retreat to run beforehand, but we come back on the 16th of February. So it's our first and third Sundays of the month.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for everything you do for the community.
You're welcome.
And you really are that leader of light, that light bearer, without a doubt. And I know you're very humble about that, but I think it's important that you know that you are significant in that space, and very, very appreciated.
That's
Thank you
very
so
kind.
much for coming on to Ask the Oracle.
Been a
It's been
pleasure.
absolutely wonderful.
Suzy, it's my absolute pleasure. I know that you shine your light wherever you go, and it's my delight to talk to you.
Thank you, my love. Bye for now.